survivor-centered forum for discussion on sexual assault. This semester, we brought this event to Tufts, inviting members of our community to submit online their experiences with sexual violence. On April 2nd, over 500 of you filled Cohen Auditorium to hear these submissions. We listened for over 2.5 hours as over 30 courageous volunteers read submissions ranging from 15 words to 15 minutes. Some were poetic, some were political, some were playful, and all of them were powerful. Thank you. Thank you for submitting, for reading, for listening, and most of all, for reflecting. Through my own reflection, I realized that it happens here reminded me of 3 very important things. Number 1, sexual violence fits no universal mold. The diverse nature of the form and content of submissions, as well as the brave survivors who share them, reminds us that there is no archetypal rape story. So there is no archetypal way to treat sexual violence. Every experience is painful in singular ways and requires an equally unique response, crafted with careful attention and sincere empathy. Legal action is not for everyone, nor is reporting. Tufts policy needs to reflect this reality, needs to reflect the diversity of experiences to which it is supposed to respond. A tailored approach for each student may be more costly and time-consuming for university officials than is the current process, but it is a cost that the university cannot afford to forfeit. Number 2, we were reminded that the Tufts administration does not like to talk about sexual violence. The school has yet to respond to it happens here in any official capacity. Indeed, they have not even acknowledged that it occurred. Tufts has demonstrated a clear preference for dealing with this issue in abstract, sterile, strictly policy-related terms. It's time that we infuse the discussion with humanity. Not hyperbole, but a rational recognition that we are dealing with real people and real bodies, that we are dealing with our peers. With you, with me, with him, with her. Any approach that continues to ignore this fact silences survivors, and language has real policy consequences. When survivors cannot comfortably participate in this discussion, adequate policies will not be born in this process. It's time that we ask ourselves, for whom is this discussion really happening? And finally, number 3. The Tufts student body is ready to change all of this, to develop a more progressive and effective sexual assault policy. Feedback to happens here was overwhelmingly positive. Survivors told us they were grateful to learn that they are not alone, that the event validated their experiences and emotions. Their peers told us they were relieved to finally see this issue in the spotlight, see it become part of the campus zeitgeist. Even would-be assailants told us they want to learn how they can practice proper consent. The policy changes we are demanding are not controversial or divisive. And I know this because students from truly every corner of the campus have personally told us that they are ready for these changes to happen. Tufts, please don't keep us waiting any longer.
Environment of my high school. I was excited to come to a place where I could feel safe, where I could start away from a personal history with sexual violence. I was excited to be on a campus that valued active citizenship, that valued advocates and encouraged political dialogue. However, I was more than just triggered. I was more triggered than I had ever been during the freshman orientation program Sex Signals. I sat in the orientation program as the actors made a mockery of the experiences of survivors of sexual violence. I sat in Ganter while 1,300 of my new best friends laughed at my experiences. I was horrified and frightened. Within my first week at school, I had already been brought back to a deeper and darker place that I had been so actively trying to escape from. Not only was the skit triggering, it failed to provide adequate education to the incoming freshmen, something that violates Title IX. Students left without knowledge of resources that existed on the Tufts campus or the Boston area. The students left entirely unsure about what the Tufts policy was, and the reality of sexual violence was misconstrued and trivialized. Representations of sexual assault and sexual violence portrayed a generally rape apologistic tone to it. That within the first week of school, my friend fell victim to sexual violence. Yes, Tufts is making improvements, the institution of safe haven being one of them, but we still have so much more to go. Tufts failed to provide us with adequate primary and secondary education about sexual violence. That is 2 Title IX violations. As an activist, when we tried to remedy the situation for the incoming freshman orientation, we were told sex signals had to remain because Tufts had already signed a contract with them. However, recent events suggest it seems as though Tufts doesn't take contracts too seriously. I am disappointed and angered by the Tufts administration, but I am proud to be a member of the student body that is currently rallying with us. Thank you. something. Thank you.
There's so many things which I would like to say, but there is little time. Why did I come to Tufts? For students like you, because I certainly didn't come for an administration. Louder! I'm sorry, I'm trying. I told myself that I wouldn't have to worry about sexual violence about Tufts, that it certainly wouldn't be like my high school with its self-serving, shiny exterior and plenty of dangerous topics hidden under its rug. I wouldn't be speaking to administrators personally, at least for a while. If anybody hurt me, it would be a rarity and people would understand the inherent wrong. I was wrong. I've seen the inside of Ballou several times already. I and so many others around me have been affected by sexual violence, slowly tearing away at our lives. And people have not always understood survivors, especially the administration. How many Title IX violations will it take for them to acknowledge our pain? How many student activists and how many meetings? How many heartbreaking stories? How much news coverage? How many voices? How many disillusioned, betrayed, lonely, and wounded students? I am frustrated. I am furious. I will not accept the fact that Tufts consistently does not educate about or prevent sexual violence effectively enough, prolongs adjudication beyond 60 days, provides misinformation, or provides inadequate support for survivors, all while relying on predominantly student activist work to profess its undying support for survivors. And then there is the fact that Tufts somehow thinks that its rapists, the ones who walk within this fence, are somehow better than the ones beyond it. So suddenly, I find myself on a task force. I find myself in endless meetings, trying to fight against a giant, all at 19 years old in my first year. What an introduction, right? What an abomination to have to learn about our rights from other students, to have to do all the research ourselves, to have to live next to people trying to pull the wool over our eyes, trying to invalidate our experiences and muffle our voices. How could Tufts do this? I will never stand for this, but every single day I will be here and I will fight for the rights of survivors. You will never stop me, Tufts.